Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I've been getting tons of questions from people on how I routinely am able to kick out villagers on my island, and I've covered a couple different methods in previous videos, but I think I've really honed in the best possible method to be able to do this, and I can typically get a villager kicked out that I want within about 10 minutes, which is pretty darn good. Now, we're going to go over this entire method today. I was hoping to see somebody with thought bubbles right now, because that would make my life significantly easier if we could find somebody moving out right now to start showcasing this method. But this is going to require some time traveling. I've been working on a really effective method without using time traveling, but to be quite frank with you, if you want to kick out a villager and you don't want it to take literally forever, then I highly recommend using the time traveling methods. Now, I will come out with some other methods as well that'll hopefully take like a week, maybe 2 weeks, hopefully significantly less without time traveling, but I still got a lot of testing to do on that. I haven't seen any other villagers. It looks like they're all hiding inside. But let's go ahead and get into this method. As I mentioned, we are going to be time traveling. As you can see, we've already kicked somebody out. We've got Bear here sniffing some flowers. We got to pick a villager that we actually want to leave. So I was looking for Tipper, because I really wanted to get rid of Tipper in this particular video. We're going to get rid of Tipper and Simon, hopefully both today. So I guess we'll go talk to Simon since we know where he is. Now, it's not mandatory that you talk to a villager first, but sometimes it does seem to help hone in on the villager that you want removed during this process. But by no means do you need to actually do that. Simon is gone. He knew we were coming for him. So first step to this process, find the villager that you want gone, and we're just going to go ahead and talk to that villager real quick. Now, once we're done talking to this villager, we're just going to immediately save and close the game. Now, you don't actually have to do that, because it does take a little bit longer. So what we're going to do is go to the settings here. We're going to switch the date forward just 1 day. So we're going to go ahead 1 day. We're going to keep the time the same. We're going to close that. Going to go in here, and then we're going to go ahead and save and close, and this is going to push us forward a day without having to completely restart the app. Now, just keep in mind that while you're going through this process, pay attention to what Isabelle is saying, because occasionally, even if you have already 10 villagers on your island, you can still get a campsite visitor, and you can replace somebody on your island with that visitor. More often than not, it's not going to happen, though. So we've only pushed forward a day, and the chances of finding a villager today that wants to move out is going to be very, very slim. Unless you've already had a villager that was pretty much already on the outs, then you're going to have to do this a few times. But every time you skip forward a day, you're going to want to make sure you check on all of your villagers and make sure none of them have a thought bubble over their head. If they do, you're going to want to check that villager and see if they are wanting to move out. If they are wanting to move out, then make sure to take note of that date. That date is going to be very important for speeding up this process for the future, because once you find that date, it's going to be very easy for you to kick a villager out, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing right now. Now, it looks like I've pretty much checked on all of the villagers. Nobody is ready to move out today, so we're going to push forward another day and continue this process until we find a villager that wants to leave. Oh god, we had another cow move in. Oh, great. But we are on day 2 of this time traveling method, and usually at this point, if I don't find any villagers ready to move out on day 2, the next thing I'm going to skip to is 15 days after this. So right now it is April 24th on the calendar that we're using for the game right now. So we're going to skip 15 days ahead of April 24th. And more often than not, we're going to find somebody with a thought bubble over their head on that day. And once we find out what that date is, getting any villager to move out is going to be much, much easier. Now that we've skipped those 15 days, just make sure to double check every villager. From here, it's only going to take about 1 or 2 more time skips before you find a villager that's going to want to move out. And the process is relatively simple. Now, the only downside of doing this particular method, well, there's 2 actually. One is going to be if you have turnips, they are going to spoil, because more often than not, you're going to pass another Sunday. And then at some point in time, you're going to need to rewind time as well, which means the turnips are going to spoil. So do not do this if you have turnips purchased. And then secondly, weeds will grow. So if you are sick of picking up weeds, this might not be the method for you. But it looks like all of our villagers are hunky-dory, and nobody wants to move out right now. So we're going to skip forward one more day and see what we get. And wham bam, thank you ma'am, we've got Monkey Boy ready to go. Exactly the villager that we wanted to leave, which is fantastic. But there is a method for this where if this was a villager that we wanted to keep, we can remember this specific date that a villager wanted to move out on, which is for us, May 11th. Now, this date is very important because say this was a different villager like Marina or something like that. Instead of talking to them and kicking them out or telling them to stay, we're just going to completely ignore them because they can't leave unless you let them leave. You have to actually physically talk to them before they will leave. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend like that wasn't Simon. I'm going to show you how to cycle through different villagers to actually make the one that you want to leave. So we're going to try and get rid of Tipper this time, I guess, or just show it pop up on a different villager on this date. So what we need to do now is go back to the original starting date of this method. Now, we started on April 22nd because I had already time traveled a few days testing a different villager kickout method, which I'll have a video released very, very soon on a legitimate way to do this without actually having to time travel if you don't want to. But for us, I started on April 22nd, so we're going to time travel back to April 22nd and get this started. All right, now that we're back at April 22nd, all we need to do now is, once again, just go ahead and go into here, go to your settings. We're going to go down once again to system, and we're going to time skip to the day that we had somebody move out already, which was when Marina wanted to leave. Now, I did push my clock back a few minutes because I do know that at this particular time, the two villagers that I actually want to leave were outside. Villagers tend to have a time of day where they like going inside, and if you're doing this method where a villager wants to be inside during that time, you're going to be wasting your time, so make sure you're time skipping to a time of the day where your villagers are actually going to be outside. That's very important. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, the thought bubble has transferred to a different character, and Tipper wants to go, which is fantastic. So what we did was we went back to the original date that we started, which was April 22nd. We immediately jumped to May 11th, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, Tipper is ready to go. And we're actually going to send her away this time. Now, it's not going to happen 100% of the time, where when you go back and then jump back to the original day that they'll have a thought bubble over your head, because sometimes the villagers will be inside or something like that. But usually, more often than not, you're going to find a new villager with a new thought bubble over their head, and they're going to be ready to leave. Now, if it happened to be a villager that you didn't want to leave once again, then you just go through the process again until you land on a villager that you actually want gone. It is the most effective way to get rid of villagers. This is the process that I use to get rid of villagers for pretty much every single live stream. It takes me about 15 minutes, especially now knowing that May 11th is my move out day. I can continue to use May 11th as many times as I want, and it could take as little as 3 minutes for me to do a villager kick out. So it's a very, very effective method, and hopefully it helps all of you get rid of the villagers that you don't want so you can get the villagers you do want. Now we got to get rid of this other cow, and I actually am curious to see if we could do this like 2 days in a row, like 2 times in a row. Technically, the bad thing about this is you don't want to try and kick out multiple villagers in a row, because eventually, if you have to do this like 2 or 3 times, then another villager is going to be moving into the spot that you kicked out on your first villager. So what I would recommend doing is getting this cow person to leave, finding the villager that you actually want, get them to move in, and then go through the process again for the next villager. Now, inevitably, because we're going to have people in the comments that can't follow directions or try and make up their own shortcuts, which ends up making the method not work, we're going to do it a few more times just to showcase how this process works once again. So we've pushed back to our original starting date, which was April 22nd, and we're going to keep the time around the same time that we know that the villagers that we want gone are outside, and then we're going to push it back to May 11th. Now, I do want to say that this doesn't happen 100% of the time. So far in this video, it has happened 100% of the time, but you might have to jump back and forth 1, 2, maybe 3 times for it to work. But let's go ahead and jump forward and see if we can actually get this to work this time. So we're going to go back into the game. We're going to hit this lovely button here, and then we're going to save and end. And just like that, we've got another villager already wanting to go right on the next skip. Now, unfortunately, it is Octavian, and I absolutely 100% do not want Octavian to leave. So in this instance, we could tell him that we want him to stay, or we could go through the process again until we get a villager that we did want to leave. I also just realized that I told Tipper to stay, which I feel super duper stupid about, because I definitely wanted him to leave, or wanted her to leave. So for Octavian, we're going to say, no, I don't want you to go because I absolutely love your octopi face. But this method definitely works, and you can use it as many times as you want to kick out as many villagers as you want. And it's a great method, especially if you feel like trading villagers out there. So you can use amiibo cards to invite them, and then you can use this method to kick them out very quickly. Now, unfortunately, I still need to go through this method and get Tipper and that monkey boy out, because since we're recording this video, I had to keep them just to showcase how this worked. So I got to kick one out for today's live stream, but this is how I go through the process for every single live stream to be able to hunt down new villagers. It works, it's very effective, and quite frankly, I do not think there is a better way to do it in the game other than obviously using amiibo cards, which you have to purchase. You don't have to be mean to your villagers. You don't have to be super duper nice to them. It's just a very quick process. Now, that being said, I will be coming out. Where is the monkey dude? Anyways, I just wanted to, like, say hello. I don't think you can have two different villagers trying to move out on the same day, but I'm curious to see if that ever does happen. I've never seen it happen so far. But I will be having a non-time travel method. I've been working really hard on trying to figure out the best method for that. I do testing pretty much every single day. But regardless, I do hope this video helped you out. If it did, make sure to slap that like button. And it's time for me to go ahead and do this process all over again to get either the monkey boy or Tipper out of my island.